What's going on, guys? Clone Force 23 here, back with another update for PQ season. We've got two decks to show off today because we had a couple of our teammates, Alec and Max, over at the Minnesota PQ at the Forge in Chaska. Big shout out to the Forge for hosting a pretty crazy event. Wasn't able to make it there, but heard a lot of good things. We'll hear some more. Two decks we got for you today. First one, our boy Alec here hit another top 8 with Sabine. Say hello to the people, Alec.
Yo, what's going on, people?
Yeah.
I brought the bean. I couldn't put her down.
Couldn't put it down, but it looks like we got some hot changes since we last talked.
Yep.
So
a lot of things can happen in 2 weeks.
A lot can happen in 2 weeks, but let's hear about those changes first.
Yeah, so we've had quite a few, honestly, and most of them are to combat the rise, or I guess the more like general consensus that there's probably going to be a lot of mono yellow Han, a lot more than normal. So the big things that were changed are just kind of things to assist in that matchup. So we brought in 2 copies of Jin Urso, just because it's another 3-power rebel that we can either fleet or that we can heroic sack into their 3/5 that they play on turn 1. Heroic sack is the other card that got brought in to pump our 3 powers into their 5 butts and then hopefully have another guy to play that turn. Because if Han can get ahead of us, it's such an incredibly hard hill to climb. Even with Sabine.
Sure.
So that was a big change. And then the other big change is I am no longer a Darksaber believer, at least not in the main 50. So I did make the switch to General's Blade, and let me tell you, this card it put in work all day, and now no one was expecting this. So there are a couple relevant plays that I think everyone should know about General's Blade. If you're trying to have this inner battle of should my Darksabers be in main, should my Blades be in main, should I just have none in the board and all in the 50? One is this card is crazy in the mirror. What it is it's another copy of Wing Leader, and that's essentially how you win the Sabine mirror, right? You throw out your turn 1 and then you pump it with a Wing Leader. This gives me 3 other copies of it, so a lot of that. And I played 2 mirrors during the PQ, and I threw General's Blade on a Battlefield Marine 4 times. It was so good. They played their turn 1, and then they either fleet it into base for 5 or they Wing Leadered, and then I was General's Blade, and now I have a 6/6. I put it on Jin a couple times as well. The 5 body didn't make much of a difference. And then the other thing is it's non-unique. So there was a game where I had a General's Blade on my turn 1 play, and I had a General's Blade on Sabine at the same time. And that kind of just seals it on up. So that's one piece that it's big. The second piece is just for sealing games. The Super Laser Blast turn is usually a pretty influential turn to the game against blue control, and on 8 you can pay 5 for cast and you can pay 3 to put a General's Blade on them, which you cannot do with the Darksaber. So that allows for a swing of 6 on the 8 turn, which if they're laser blasting on 8, you've got them on the edges. You're pumping damage. So it can be just another closer. And then the other thing is on any of the 3 power bodies, I'm including Sundari Peacekeeper in that, but any of the, our 3s, our Cass, our Sundari Peacekeeper, Fighters for Freedom, the Gen Blade still takes out Childson. The Darksaber did the same thing. You throw it on it, they take out Childson, and they live. But this allows us to have 1 resource free, so we can heroic sack, we can R2, or we can rebel assault on the Sabine flip and take out a Childson. So that's the benefit of that. Yeah, the General's Blade was amazing throughout the day. I don't think that I'm going to be switching back to Darksaber in the main anytime soon. The two sabers in the side only come in against Quinlan and the mirror. And like I said, I played a Quinlan, I played two mirrors. Having the 5 blades altogether, the 3 blades and then the 2 sabers, was crazy. It just felt like, oh, I'm going to slap this on my guy and go boom. And then you just have to deal with this, sling 2 units into it, or just make him have the waylay. So that big change did pay off. I was really happy with the list today. I played no Django's, so Daring Raid never came out of my sideboard once. Okay. Other than that, everything else came out of the board for something. I was really comfortable with the board in terms of just maximizing going to 3 copies of Peacekeeper or Bright Hope, and then Fighters for Freedom just comes in against Blue Hero or Sentinel stuff. And yeah, performed really well. So I'll do a little breakdown of my matches here. Spoiler alert, I ran the Palp Yellow Gauntlet today. I don't know where that came from, but so my round 1 was against Palp Yellow. They all run to 30 HP base. And that was a 2-0. And I was like somewhat unfamiliar with this deck, especially as like a Palp player myself. I just have never really felt the yellow Palp kind of got there for me. But yes, around 1 I 2-0'd. It was kind of typical Sabine lines. And then my round 2 was against Palp Yellow. He actually won game 1. Now, this Palp Yellow was like main boarded for aggro, was playing some crazy stuff. He was playing the 3-cost 2/3 coordinate ship that if you have coordinate up, you capture a 3-cost unit.
Oh,
so like, my turn 1 was Pathfinder, and I thought that he'd throw down an official and then an Emp card. So my turn 1 was Pathfinder. My turn 2 was General's Blade on Pathfinder, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to kill his official with Saboteur and then just start going for base. And then he just claimed and threw that down, captured my Pathfinder, killed my General's Blade, and I'm like, what is going on?
Wait, what?
And then he had outmaneuvers in the main deck. And on top of that, he was playing Xanadu Blood. He had actually kind of a crazy infinite loop. So he was playing Xanadu Blood with Salacious Crumb. So you play Crumb, heal 1, attack with Xanadu Blood, bounce your Crumb to exhaust something, and then you can just keep playing it on attack, bounce it. So it was kind of a really cool kind of loop. But so game 1, he took that, and then from the board, I think I just brought in Fighters for Freedom and Peacekeeper. I believe I took out 2 of the Gen Blades, maybe a Bright Hope and a Gen Blade, but I was able to get game 2 and 3. That was kind of just typical Sabine, Wrecker, Rebel Salt, good stuff finishes. So we took round 2, 2-1. Round 3 was against Shrewd Tarkentown. Shoutouts to my guy, Jack, because me and my brother are a big fan of Shrewd Tarkentown, that deck from set 1. And I did 2-0 that, but they were extremely close matches down to 1 attack, and he would have stabilized. So that was a really fun matchup. Round 4 was the mirror. I started with initiative. I won game 1. He had the initiative game 2. He won game 2. I had the initiative game 3, and I won game 3. It was like that simple. Wow. Sabine Mirror is just like we like mirrored each other's play almost every time. It was like Marine, A-Wing. Sabine, like anything that I did, he did. I did do like General's Blade stuff into his Wing Leader stuff, and that was big. Yeah, it was just kind of like typical Sabine Mirror, and they were fun matches, and we got done, had like 48 minutes left in the round. So
oh my gosh.
Like, what do you want to do now? You want to do another one? So that was super fun. So I won that one 2-1. That was my round 4. Round 5, we had Friendly Fire, and I faced Max. We were both 4-0 at that point, so little spoilers for the Quinlan deck list for Max that we're going into, but he had just picked up this deck the night before. We had like not a lot of testing into that deck or for him using it. So all I knew was I needed to open with R2 or else my first play was getting Tarkin Town. And I was able to get R2 out the first game and the last game. I think he gave me the initiative, and then I pinged, and then he passed. So I threw out R2 and was able to avoid a Tarkin Town play that game. Game 2, I did not get an R2, and he killed my turn 1 play. Mm-hmm. And then game 3, we had the same kind of deal where I was able to get an R2, and so I avoided the turn 1 kill. Game 3 was super close. It came down to where I had to like burn all the cards in my hand off a Poe, and then he was able to kill it. And I had no cards in hand, top deck mode. ECL was used, and it was like I needed to draw a wrecker, and the first card on the top of my deck was a wrecker. And I was like, oh, it feels so good, but it feels so bad to end a friendly fire match that way. So we did beat Quinlan Tarkentown 2-1. So we're going into round 6, and I was 5-0 at that point. But I was about to face the monster, and that was Mono Yellow Han, my first one of the day. And I was just going into this like, this is the matchup. Like, this is the terrible matchup you don't want to pull. And man, it like was terrible. Game 1, I missed a turn 1 play after my first draw and after a mulligan, so I had to burn my ECL on a Fighters for Freedom to take out a Crafty Smuggler, and I was just kind of like, all right, hopefully we can just go ban for ban after this and keep up. And then I was not able to. Game 2 was very close, and we were able to get it to a 1-attack action. I did have a heroic sack on a K2 while I had Fighters for Freedom up, so that was 10 damage to the base, but he had the surprise strike in hand, which put me to 25 exactly. If anything less than that, I would have had a next attack, which would have put the game to me. So, wow, Yellow Han, brutal. There's just like no more innovation you can do with this deck to prepare for Mono Yellow Han. So we played it super well. I mean, I wish I would have drawn a turn 1 play game 1, but it is what it is. So we lost that 0-2. And then the final round of the day was another mirror, and same stuff happened. He started with initiative. I got initiative second game. He got initiative third game. And again, it just came down to, okay, who's pumping what? Do we have the stuff? He boarded in his upgrade hate, and he was actually on Fang Fighters over the Confiscates, so he was able to Fang Fighter a blade off of one of my guys, but also put a guy onto the field, so that was kind of brutal to catch up for that. But we did take 1 game off of him, so yeah, we lost that 1-2. So going into Top Cut, I was 5-2, but I had really good tiebreakers, and so I was 7th out of Swiss pairings out of 90. And then my first game of Top Cut was Palp Yellow. We ran it back all the way. So the first game I opened with like triple A-Wings in hand, and I was like, I think I'm just going to keep this. And I just threw out an A-Wing, and they put in work. Again, that deck is like super weird, but Spaces definitely seemed a little bit more weak for it. And the A-Wings put in work game 1. Game 2, his board that he brought in for aggro was like 9 cards or something.
Oh my gosh.
Super heavy. And it was like playing a 1-drop and then McClunking my turn 1 play, and then he did the same thing for my turn 2 play. So that was kind of brutal, real kind of hard to push that early damage. So we took it to the game 3, and game 3 was just 1 action away from getting the W, but did not have that, unfortunately. He was able to take a wrecker with his Palp flip, which I just couldn't do anything about. I had to get that wrecker out there, and that kind of sealed it up. But they were great matches, super fun. So we're yet again, unfortunately, out in first round of Top Cut at my second PQ of the season. But overall, I felt the deck performed better than it did 2 weeks ago, especially with the couple changes that I made. As far as just going forward, I saw no Djangos, and so Bright Hope was just kind of a completely dead card in my hand all day. That might be something that just goes into the board, and maybe I bring in the third Zandari or the second fighters into the main deck, and Bright Hope's just completely in the board. Something like that. The other thing is, I think I might need 3 R2s just because of the Quinlan matchup, because that was really scary not to have. Knowing that, that might be floating around our locals, by someone. So that'll be the only other thing that I might test. But at the moment, yeah, I felt great. Sabine did Sabine stuff, and it was a good run.
All right, yeah, heating up there. Two tops at the PQs. Got at least one more in you. Maybe we'll see that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see that. We'll see a little more. We'll see a little more out of that. Yeah, no, I did see another substantial drop in Django presence. There was some top 8 and some. I think there was one win, but it's also just what people are bringing. It sounded like from what you were talking about is like a lot of Sabine.
Yeah, definitely a lot of Sabine. Yeah, that too, I guess. Minnesota's the home of Palpiello. Might have been like the second most represented deck of the day, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But hey, it did stuff that I wasn't expecting. So
sure did.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got another deck here to talk about as well. Alec mentioned it, but it's our boy Max, who also made top 8 at the same event with Quinlan Tarkentown. Talked about this a little bit in your matchup, but looking at the list here is pretty solid. We all know about the greatness of early Tarkentown removal against aggro to just clean the board up. Quinlan coming out at a great time during the game. A lot of good amount of hand hate in here with throws, Sparks, and Kira's. Just in some great, and then just great yellow stuff because cunning is just ridiculous in most cases. But
yeah,
I believe you got the breakdown though for how this went out.
Yep, I do. I got his pairings and what he went. And yeah, going into it, the Quinlan lists tend to be a little bit more like there's a lot of 2s and there's a couple 1s in the list. And a lot of the third copies of cards are in the side. And going into it, he had never played this deck. He started playing the deck 2 a.m. before a PQ. Played 5 games and thought, what, I'll ship it. But I guess it was the force was with him, I guess. So going into it, though, when we had talked about it a couple times, because I had the deck built just because we had the showcase. But going into it, we're discussing a lot of just like plain good balance, just playing like 3 of the cards that are good and like boarding in the cards that are advantageous in our matchups. And so, yeah, we literally just went with good stuff balance for the list, just straight up 3 of almost every single card in the deck and only 2 copies of 1 card. And so that, I don't think a lot of the Quinlan lists are on that, but he said it felt great to have that just reliability of, okay, I have a pretty good chance of drawing like these cards that I need, and then I can board out, maybe I don't need 2 copies of L3 in this matchup, or maybe I don't need 2 copies of Waylay. So you can board them out for the side stuff. And then the side was real kind of simple. The 3-3-2-2 lineup, just bring it into whatever is needed. I think he also Darren Raids didn't come out of the board at all today because he didn't play a Django, so I don't know. Maybe that card kind of makes it way out if Django isn't as present.
Sure.
But yeah, overall, he said the deck felt great. He said Hand Hate was incredible today. Force Throw is one of the best cards in the game for a reason. His big shout-outs were to Grogu and to Ezra. He said Grogu tapped down a bunch of stuff, kept Han in check, and he had some crazy Ezra rips from the day. Okay. So that might be his spirit monster of the deck. I don't know if that's ever coming out for three of them. But yeah, we'll run through his pairings here. So unlike me, who dodged this until round 6, he had to face Mono Han in game 1. Not only that, he was going against a PQ champion from 2 weekends ago from our locals. So shout out to Joey. Max had to pair up against him round 1, and we, kind of didn't again have a lot of practice with the deck or experience with it, and he kind of pulled actually a great matchup with Quinlan into Han, and he just used Hand Hate, tapped people down with Grogu, and that seemed to get him there. So he actually 2-0'd the Mono Han that he paired in round 1 with. So it was great. His round 2 was against Cad Bane Tarkentown, and I think that was kind of just a grind fest. I think game 2 they did the pass thing for like 2 turns because they just didn't want anything to get Tarkentown, but Cad cannot go to the end game like Hero can, and I think that's just kind of what pushed him out of the gate. Was he was able to just start applying pressure with some bigger guys more than Cad could. So it's round 2, he 2-0'd Cad Tarkentown. Round 3 was against Maul ECL, and he said Hand Hate was the key there, ripped a whole bunch of OBs. Enough said. His round 4 was against Kira Green, and I was actually watching part of this matchup. At one point, he had a Blastered Plo Koon with Coordinate Activate, and he surprise striked it for like 1,000,000 damage. That was just to seal it off. For some reason, I want to talk about Plo Koon actually, because for some reason, this is the deck where he's broken in, and I don't understand why. Han's playing this, but it's only 1 or 2 copies in the sideboard because for some reason you could just never have Coordinate up. It's real hard to. Mm-hmm. But with this, it just works, and it put in work for him. Today he said Plo was probably the best card in the deck, just based off of numbers and what it can swing by. If he can kind of control the game up to the Plo turn, and then he just starts going 6 to base, that adds up a lot. So Plo was great. So yeah, he was able to 2-0 Kira Green. His round 5 was against me, like we had discussed. He did take 1 game, but ultimately I was able to top deck him into a win. So 1-2, he lost to Sabine ECL. His round 6 was against Iden Green, and he was able to 2-1 that. And then his final round was against Bosk Blue. He just pulled the control matchups all day, which I think is good. He's got all the Hand Hate in the game, other than Bodhi Rook. And I know against Bosk, he said he bounced a couple of his units multiple times with Waylays, which was huge for the game. And it was just a grind fest. I think he said against the Bosk player, they had gotten to an absurd number of resources, 12 or 13, and he was still able to get it, which is even more impressive. So yeah, he actually had a 6-1 run in Swiss with a deck that he picked up the night before. So huge shout outs to Max, insane performance.
Nice
the only Quinlan in top, which was cool. His top 8 match was against Sabine ECL, which was a real tough matchup for Quinlan. And he unfortunately lost that 1-2. So he did pick up a game. I know he said the last game came down to a decision of playing Akira or playing a Spark. And he just went with the Spark to ensure I think he had like a strike Kira Spark in hand. So he sparked, and unfortunately the opponent revealed 2 wreckers. And if he only had 1 wrecker, it would have been game, but he had 2 copies in his hand. So
sure.
It was just kind of a, hey, he had it. There's no way around that.
For sure.
So that was kind of tough. But yeah, overall, super, super impressive run. I don't think a lot of people were expecting this, even though it's a pretty relevant deck in the meta right now. He ate aggro all day, and he ate control all day. So what can I say? He kind of just went crazy.
Yeah.
I know he said the list was solid. He's thinking of changes. I think the only thing he said is he wants a 1-drop so that he can ping the R2s that Sabine plays. So a little bit of a learning off of that. So that's the only thing I think he had mentioned that he might look into. But other than that, this balance package he had a lot of success with. So why change something if it's not broken?
Sounds like he just needs to bring in the R2s.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got to get R2.
Everyone's on it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a heck of a run for the both of you. The both of you now on your second top 8 for PQs.
Yep. Yeah, it was a fun day. Again, shout outs to the Forge. It was a super, super well run event, especially for it being negative 1 million in Minnesota this past weekend. So no one could go outside and just take the load off. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a super nice store. We've been there, of course, before, but they got everyone pizza. The atmosphere was super fun. We saw a whole bunch of people from our locals, and it was a super fun time. Really, really well run event. So again, shout out to them. Another one on our list of, hey, if they keep having PQs, we will keep going to them because it's a super great time.
Absolutely. So we're going to try to go to the next one in Minnesota here in a couple of weeks. Kind of hearing these matchups and what was around, it sounds like the 2 things that are the most prevalent sounds like aggro with Sabine, specifically, some mono yellow Han, and some control out there. Heard a lot of blue green, the Palpatine yellows of the world. And then just that Django fall off still being a thing. What was the blue hero like? We see any blue hero? Too much.
There was an Anakin player. That I think he had somewhat of a good run and maybe fell off on the end. Mm-hmm. There was a blue Han that made it into the top cut, the blue Han 1. So blue and yellow hero. Shout out to Gabe. He was playing a crazy list. But yeah, not a super strong representation of blue hero, I would say, today or that day. I know there was a Yoda green that had made it to some point, but again, I think he kind of was getting up there and then kind of fell off towards the end. So that was kind of rough. But yeah, the blue not kind of showing up as much as you would think. And I think maybe that's just because, we've got our aggro, right? We've got our Sabine, our Han, our Django fall into that category, but this Quinlan and these CAD decks, these mid-range decks that are good into the aggro, they kind of turn into the aggro when they pair up against control. So it's kind of a rough time for blue right now. They're all playing hand hate. Like almost all of those decks are playing hand hate. If not, they board into it. And they have some really like explosive plays, every single one of them. You know, Django's got triple dark raid. Sabine has ECL Wrecker. Quinlan has Han Solo Platoon. Cad has Forlom and Zuckuss. Like, there's a lot of, and Han has like a million things. There's like, it's kind of tough for blue right now because blue kind of, especially blue hero, which I know you and me have discussed blue hero a lot because I love blue hero.
Yeah,
but it plays such a fair game. Like, your unit has to be played and do nothing that turn and then live. Then you can do crazy stuff. And I think it's kind of rough in the meta that we have right now to be using that.
Yeah, a lot of explosive turns that we're seeing here. A lot of quick removal, real like hard, like the control is almost more in the units. You know, you see a lot of ambush, or you see a lot of abilities that kind of creature control rather than like as many events, which then kind of turns the tempo off for blue to kind of like wait, and they kind of really kill that. So
yeah, and if you look at it, I mean, right, go through the list again. Sabine, Django, Han, Cad, Quinlan. 5 decks, 4 of them are in Cunning. Right, so 4 of them are playing like the waylays, the surprise strikes, the like insane tempo swings, and then Sabine has ECL Wrecker. So like the tempo swings that all those decks have are crazy, and it's really hard for blue to keep up with that.
I mean, the most brutal thing that can be done is when you're playing that fair unit on, let's on 6, let's say Obi-Wan, and then they just waylay for 3. It's just the game might as well be over because it's just it's so brutal. You can't come back from. You burned everything to do that. It takes a lot. So okay, all right. Well, I guess there's some more thinking to be done if we're going into this next round. But again, big shout out to both you and Max for another great showing.
Thank you.
I think we'll try to get a little more about this PQ here later this week. But yeah, if you're liking our stuff, you want to keep up on what we're doing, make sure that you're subscribed, like our content. If there's other stuff that you want us to try and cover, we're going to try and maybe see if we can branch out after we kind of get through our PQ runs here. But a lot of exciting stuff that are coming up, so yeah, should be good. Otherwise,
should be great.
Yeah, we have a good time. Love playing Star Wars. So we'll leave you there, and we'll catch you in the next one. Clone Force 23s. Go, peace out.
Peace.
Grand Army of the Republic when deployed. Galactic warfare you cannot avoid. Go ahead, be a battle droid. Face off against my clone troopers and get destroyed. Space tech, spaceports, TCG, card sports, of course. Till my voice goes hoarse. Welcome, wrecking, decking with the strategy. The energy, it's Clone Force 23.